Small papers change things. Weeks turn into months. The order keeps him away. The dog grows used to my rhythms. I learn small safety habits. I lock the door twice. I check the peephole. I keep a spare phone charged in a kitchen drawer. The kettle hisses once and I breathe out. At night, I run my fingertips along the deadbolt. The metal is cool. My thumb finds the scratch left by a ring. I rub it away. I tuck the keys into the bowl by the door and feel the weight settle. The dog thumps his tail against my ankle like a soft metronome. A layer of dust moves when I brush the table. I pause and listen. The house makes small sounds now. Pipes click. The dog snores soft in his bed. My hand on the mug warms and then cools. I hold the steam and count to 5. When the kettle hisses a second time, I pour carefully. The cup trembles in my hand. Steam fogs the window for a breath. The sound of the spoon on porcelain is bright and quick. I set the cup down and take one slow sip. Letter arrives in a white envelope with a bank stamp. I open it at the table. The check is small. It covers a cleaning bill and a replacement latch for the box. It does not replace the photo. I put the check in the packet and note the date. I make a note on the back of the envelope. Step 1, photograph. Step 2, write date. Step 3, file under receipts. The pen moves in short strokes. I press hard and the ink sinks into the paper. The paper smells faintly of glue. I set the pen down and rub my knuckle on the paper as if to press the steps into my skin. The dog noses the envelope. I pull it away gently. Not yet, I say. He wags and walks off. His nails click on the floor like a guard of small sounds. Appointment sits in my calendar for a victim advocate meeting. She sits across from me in a room that smells like coffee. Her voice is low. She hands me a folder and a checklist. She shows me steps. She says, make copies, file this form. Call if you need help. I do what she says. We walk the list one item at a time. First, she says, call the court clerk and ask about filing fees. Her fingers tap the table like a quiet drum. I write that down. My pen clicks when I close the cap. The sound is small and steady. She slides a small notepad toward me and draws a tiny map to the clerk's office. Bring every paper, she says, even the grocery receipt with the date. I nod. My hand folds the map into a corner of my pocket. The paper makes a thin crease. Folder sits with tabs I make. I label 1 receipts, 1 calls, 1 witnesses. I photocopy the salon slip and the vet note. I staple the 911 printout and slide it behind a tab. I write dates on each page in blue ink. The pages rustle when I flip them. The sound feels like order. The 911 printout is damp along the edge from the time I left it by the sink. The numbers are small. The operator's voice is a single line in a transcript. I run a fingertip across the timestamp, and it leaves a faint groove. I tuck the sheet between heavier pages so it will not fold. I add a page that lists contact names. Number 1 is the advocate. Number 2 is the prosecutor. Number 3 is the clinic. I fold the paper and tuck it beneath the receipts. The fold makes a tiny ridge. I run a thumb along it. Phone buzzes with a text from his mother. She writes, "Can we talk?" I do not reply. I stand at the sink and run my hands under cold water. The tile is sharp under my palms. I dry my hands and put the phone face down. Later, I send a brief message. No contact. File is public. The typing feels like a small armor. I think the message through twice before I hit send. I read it out loud under my breath. The dog's nails click on the floor. The message goes and the screen shows 3 small dots for a moment. Then they vanish. Mailbox holds small envelopes. One is a certified receipt for the protective order. The paper is thick and the stamp is red. I sign for it at the post office. The clerk looks at me with soft eyes. He says, "You did good." I thank him and leave. On the walk home, the wind bends a newspaper against a stoop. I crouch and smooth it. My fingers smell faintly of printer ink. I tuck the certified receipt into my bag so it won't crinkle. The strap rubs my shoulder as I walk. Court follow-up sits on the calendar for a review hearing. I meet the prosecutor in a narrow hallway. He goes over the case notes. He nods at the photos and the timestamps. He says, "We can push for restitution and in order to complete counseling." I ask what that looks like. He lists steps, file a motion, set a schedule, serve papers. I take notes and feel a little steadier. He points to a form and says, "This will need signatures." I copy the name and date. He hands me a business card. "Call me if anything changes," he says. I fold the card and put it in the folder. The fold fits into the crease in the folder like a small talisman. Outside the courthouse, a pigeon flutters near my shoe. It pecks at a dropped coffee lid and then hops off. I breathe and let the sound of the city fill the space. The prosecutor puts a hand on my shoulder for a moment. "Good work," he says. I nod and keep walking. Counseling letter arrives for him. It shows a schedule of 8 sessions. I get a call from the clinic to confirm. They say he is enrolled. I do not watch the number light on my phone. I let it ring and then silence it. I write down the dates from the counseling letter. I circle any that fall near court dates. My handwriting looks cramped. I breathe in and out. The dog bumps my knee as if to say, keep going. Walks around the block become part of my day. The dog sniffs each mailbox and drags me past a house with a blue door. The air smells like cut grass and diesel. I count the fence posts on the return trip. Counting helps. On one walk, I stop to retie my shoe. A neighbor pauses on his porch and says, "How are you holding up?" I answer, "Better." He nods and tips his hat. The dog pulls impatiently, and the neighbor laughs once and says, "Okay, go on then." The sound is small and kind. I add small detours to the walk. We stop at a corner tree. I pick up a smooth rock and hold it. The rock is cool. I trace a line on its surface with my thumb. The dog tugs and the leash sings a soft complaint. Envelope sits with a small certificate from the volunteer center. It shows his name on a service log. He reported for community service. The hours look low. I keep the log with the packet. I underline the hours with a red pencil. I make a note, confirm with center. I call the number listed. A voice on the line says, "He came in sporadically." I write that down. The paper feels heavier when I add the note. Phone pings with a notice from the courthouse. A motion to modify the restraining order is filed. My stomach tightens. I call the prosecutor's office. A woman answers and reads the motion. She says, "We will object." She adds a hearing date. I mark it in my folder. I read the motion twice. The language is blunt. It asks for reduced distance. It argues changed circumstances. I breathe slow. I make an action list, notify advocate, send copy to prosecutor, prepare statement if needed. The list helps break the weight into steps. I write the steps like a recipe. Step 1, copy motion. Step 2, call advocate. Step 3, ask prosecutor about next steps. The words sit on the page like a plan. I check each one off as I go. The checking sound is a soft tick. Walk to the clerk's office is rainy. The sky is low and gray. My shoes wet through. The clerk takes the motion and stamps received. He slides a copy back to me. The ink is damp on my thumb. I wash it off at the sink and blot it with a paper towel. The water runs cold as I scrub the ink. Tiny black flecks tumble away. I dry my hands and press the towel into the trash. Outside, the rain softens and the street shines with pooled light. I tuck the stamped copy into the folder and close it with both hands. Hearing sits in a small courtroom months after the plea. I sit in the front row with the packet open on my lap. The judge asks each side to speak. He listens to the prosecutor. He reads the counseling receipts. He asks the defendant a few direct questions. His voice is flat. The judge then reaffirms the order. I listen to the judge's words like a slow clock. When he speaks the name of the order, my chest loosens a bit. A woman in the gallery exhales so sharply I startle. The gavel is a dull sound. The packet on my lap catches the light for a second. I close it a bit and smooth the cover. After the hearing, I stand in the hall and hold the stamped pages. Someone else leaves the courtroom smiling at a small win. I do not smile. My reflection in the glass looks tired but steady. I fold the papers and slip them into the folder where I can reach them. Counselor notes sit in the file weeks later. The counselor writes that he attended sessions sporadically. She lists topics covered: accountability, impulse control, empathy exercises. She notes one missed appointment and one late arrival. The notes are short and clinical. I add them to the packet. I highlight the lines that mention missed sessions. The highlighter leaves a neon mark that looks almost like a scar. I write verify dates next to it. The paper resists the pen. The ink pools at the tip and then dries. Days pass with small tasks. I scan the new receipts and upload them to a cloud folder. I change passwords on the accounts we shared. I call the utility company to move the name off the bungalow. I make copies of the lease clause and send them to the legal clinic. The woman at the clinic says, "You handled that well." The praise sits in my pocket like a coin. I label the cloud folder with today's date. The cursor blinks until I type. The files upload slowly. The progress bar shrinks in small, steady bites. I check each upload. A sound pings when each one finishes. Phone shows a voicemail one morning. It is from a number I do not recognize. I press play. It is his voice. He leaves a quiet apology and says, "I am trying." The message ends with him saying, "I don't want trouble." I let it sit. I do not call back. I listen to the message once in full. Then again, with the speaker on. His words echo small in the kitchen. The dog lifts his head and tilts it. I thumb the delete key and then stop. The message stays for now. Envelope slips under my door late one night. I pick it up with the toe of my shoe. Inside is a handwritten note from his sister. She thanks me for being patient. She says she never meant for this to happen. She writes, "Tell the dog I miss him." I fold the paper and put it in the packet. I press my palm into the fold like it is a seal. The paper has a popcorn scent from a movie she mentions. Her handwriting is loops and slants. I keep the note where I can reach it, but not where I will be tempted to answer. Check arrives by mail in October. The restitution check is stamped with a bank seal. The amount is larger than the earlier payment. It lists line items, cleaning, repair, a small sum listed as sentimental value. I do not cash it right away. I photograph it and email the picture to the prosecutor. I write the deposit date on the back. I measure the check with my finger. The paper feels flimsy and strange in my hand, like a promise wrapped in linen. I hold the phone over it and tap the shutter twice. The photo saves and a small thumbnail appears on my screen. I attach it and write a short note for your records. Then I press send. Days later, I deposit the check. The teller counts the paper and hands me a slip with a timestamp. I keep that slip with the packet. The action feels official. It feels like a last step in a messy ledger. The teller's voice is steady as she slides the slip across. A bell rings softly behind her when another transaction completes. I trace the stamped time with my thumb. The ink leaves a faint line. I fold the slip and put it behind the receipts. Walks with the dog include the old bungalow now locked and empty. I stand across the street and look. The curtains are closed. A light goes on in one room and then off again. I do not cross the street. I keep to the sidewalk. The dog pulls toward a tree and sniffs, then settles at my heels. I listen for steps on the porch. The bamboo wind chime tinkles low and then stops. A car passes and the tires whisper on wet pavement. I breathe slow and feel the leash slacken my hand. The house looks smaller from here. Calls from his work happen once. He tells his manager he has done what the court ordered. The manager sounds tired. I get a brief email from Human Resources saying they received notice of the conviction and are reviewing. The email is short and impersonal. I archive it. I write archive on my notebook so I can remember where I put the file. Later I pull the file back out and underline the lines about review process. The underline is steady and careful. I close the notebook and tuck it into the drawer. Court file closes 1 week after the restitution clears. The clerk emails a final notice. The docket shows case closed conditions satisfied. I print the page and add it to the folder. The stamp on the printout is small and black. I trace it with my thumb. The print smells like toner and paper. I fold it once to fit the folder, then unfold it and smooth the crease. The page makes a soft whisper when I slide it in. The drawer clicks shut, and the house feels slightly lighter. Evenings are quieter. I light a candle and set it on the table near the envelope with the photo. The wick burns low. The room smells faintly of wax and lemon. I sit and look at the ledger of small papers that kept me safe. I turn one page and then another. Each proof is ordinary: a receipt, a voice file, a stamped form. Each one is heavy with a day. I let the candle drip a tiny bead of wax onto a scrap of paper. I press the scrap onto the envelope as if to seal a small victory. The wax cools fast. The dog rests his head on my knee and breathes slow. The light shivers on the photograph's edge. Neighbor waves from over the fence now and then. He brings me a jar of canned peaches once. He says, he keeps to himself now. I say, that is good. We stand on either side of the hedge and the dog sniffs him politely. The sun warms our shoulders. He shares small gossip that feels like worn coins. He mentions seeing someone moving boxes into a van 2 streets over. I nod and keep my face steady. Information has a way of multiplying when passed through soft mouths. On a late afternoon, the neighbor leans against the fence and asks, "Do you need help with anything?" I think about the packet on the table. I say, "No, thank you, I'm okay." He shrugs and says, "All right. You know where I am." The dog barks once and chases a fly across the yard. Time does not fix everything. The photo never returns whole. My grandmother's smile stays in the lid on the shelf. I dust it and sometimes talk to it. I tell the picture about small things. I tell it about the dog's new tricks and the way the kettle whistles now instead of the screen door. I polish the frame twice a month. The cloth catches dust in tiny threads. Sometimes I press the cloth to my cheek and listen to the memory like a low song. The lid closes with a sound like a soft exhale. Phone sits on my table, sometimes unanswered. I check social media rarely. His account has fewer posts. His mother posts once and deletes it later. I do not see him in public. I do not want to. When I do, I look away. My heart slows. I practice short lines to say if we meet. I am okay. I tell myself, please leave. The sentences feel like small shields. I rehearse them while tying my shoes. Court notices stop arriving. The packet sits in a drawer, labeled closed. I take it out 3 months later and run my fingers through the pages. The police stamp, the judge's signature, the receipts, the recordings, they feel like proof. They feel like a map of steps I took. I copy one page and send it to my sister with a short note for safety. She replies with a string of heart emojis and the word proud. I close the drawer and breathe. The house hums low in the heat of noon. Small rituals keep me steady. I make a copy of the packet for my sister and one for my aunt. I write the date on the cover of each. I leave one copy at the legal clinic's office shelf. The woman there nods when she sees it. She says it will help others. I let the words sit. I include a short index in each copy. Page 1, protective order. Page 2, receipts. Page 3, counseling notes. The index is small and clear. Someone might need it, and I want them to find what they need fast. I staple a small note to the index with the clinic's phone number and the hours. The staple prickles under my thumb. I fold the corner of the copy to mark it like a quiet bookmark. The folder is ready like a small kit. Walks with the dog grow longer in spring. We pass the bakery, and the dog smells the bread. I buy a small loaf and bring it home. I tear the crust and give the dog a piece. He barks once in excitement and then looks at me as if to say, "Thanks." The loaf leaves crumbs on my shirt. I brush them away and feed the crumbs to the bird that sits on the fence. The dog noses the crumbs and snuffles for more. We both feel full of small pleasures. Life rearranges around the small papers. They do not erase the past. They make a path through it. I keep proof. I guard the facts. I keep doing the little steps that build a safe day. I make a new habit of checking the packet every Sunday. I add anything new, even small notes. The habit is like a calendar I can touch. It reminds me that movement matters. When I add a note, I fold it twice and write the date on the outside. The act is tiny, but it marks time. I tuck the note into the tab section and run my thumb along the edge until it smooths into the other papers. Envelope with the final docket sits in the drawer. I close it and slide it back under the photo lid. I hold the lid in my palms and feel the old tape and the smooth wood. The initials show faintly where the glass once was. I breathe in and out. The house hums with a quiet I have earned. Sometimes at night I open the drawer and read the dates like constellations. I map where I stood each time. It is not grand, it is steady. I leave the packet where I can reach it in an emergency. I move it from drawer to bag if I travel. The zipper on the bag rubs the paper in a soft way. I check the papers before I go out, like checking my shoes. Some days, I add tasks that are small and plain. I buy new batteries for the flashlight. I set them in a line on the table. The foil on the pack crinkles when I open it. The batteries are cold in my hand. I slide one into the flashlight and click it on. The light is sharp. It throws a white strip across the wall. I click it off and repeat the test once more. I pack a small emergency bag. I tuck a copy of the packet inside. I add a charger, a small first aid kit, and a list of phone numbers. I write "take bag" on a sticky note and stick it near the door. The sticky edge tugs at the paint when I peel it off later. The advocate calls one afternoon to check in. She says, "How are you managing routines?" I say, "Okay." She says, "Keep the bag ready. Review your plan." I say, "I will." Her voice makes the plan feel less like a file and more like a map I can use. We go through a short drill on the phone. "If you see him move to a public place," she says, "call 911, document it." I say the steps out loud. The dog lifts his head at my voice. I say, "I will." The advocate's pen scratches on paper at my end of the line. I can hear it. I add a note to the packet. Test flash. Check batteries. Update contacts. The list has 4 items. I mark the first one done with a small check. The check is quick, decisive. At night, I set the bag by the door and tuck a small card with the clinic's number inside the front pocket. I feel the card through the fabric. The edges are blunt from being handled. I fold it once and press it flat. I start a habit of walking different routes sometimes. I vary my times by a few minutes. I change which side of the street I walk on. The dog pulls me into new paths. The sound of our shoes on the pavement is a steady drum. A new printout sits in the packet after one visit with the advocate. It is a safety plan with step-by-step actions. I read it and trace each line with my finger. It lists places to go, people to call, and signs to watch for. The paper is plain but direct. I tuck it behind the index. Sometimes I rehearse a call to the police. I speak the words slowly into the phone. "This is an emergency. I need help." The line is clear in the kitchen. I hang up when I finish and try again with a slight change in tone. The dog presses his nose against my hand and stays quiet. I add a label inside the packet with the word "urgent" and a bright marker line. The marker smells sharp. I run my finger along the ink until it dries. The line looks like a small promise. Months continue. I still check the packet each Sunday. I still test the flashlight. I still lock the door twice. The small papers live in a drawer and a bag and in my head. They trace the path I walked. They do not fix everything, but they make steps clear. I sit at the table and open the folder now and then. I touch the corner of a receipt. I can feel the groove of the ink. The dog breathes and the kettle hisses. I close the folder and slide it back into the drawer. The house settles around the small sounds.